We didn't expect that our only daughter would suddenly become a stranger to us. My name is Lorraine, and I am 65 years old. My husband, Robert, and I have worked, saved, and sacrificed our entire lives for our only daughter, Heather. Everything we have done for her. We sold our home 3 years ago. Not because we wanted to, but because Heather needed help. She had her eye on a big, beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood just outside Denver. Her credit wasn't strong, and she didn't have stable income. She hadn't worked in over 5 years, claiming stress and burnout. We didn't ask questions. We only asked, how can we help? We used the equity from our house as a down payment and signed the mortgage in her name, using our retirement savings to pay off the monthly bills. We moved into the guest bedroom. I tried to make it feel like home. Fresh curtains, my mother's quilt on the bed, a few family photos on the dresser. But it never truly belonged to us. And now I realize it never did. Heather barely acknowledged what we gave up for her. At first, she made coffee in the mornings. She invited us to movie nights. But as the months passed, she became distant. Cold. She ordered food and didn't ask if we wanted any. She threw parties we weren't invited to in our own home. Sometimes she wouldn't come home for days, and when she did, she walked past us like we were part of the wallpaper. Then came the news about my sister, Caroline. She was 68 and rich beyond measure. Caroline and I had grown apart over the years. Her life took her to yachts and banquets, mine to school cafeterias and neighborhood churches. But when her health started to fail, she asked for me. Heather insisted on coming too, saying she wanted to say goodbye. I should have known better. Caroline was in a hospice room, a quiet place with a view of the mountains. The scent of lavender filled the room. I remember holding her fragile hand, whispering stories from our childhood. She smiled faintly. Heather sat next to her, her hand on Caroline's. Heather, my dearest niece, you've always been like the daughter I never had. Everything I leave behind will be yours. She paused. Don't worry, Aunt Caroline, our daughter said, brushing a strand of hair from my sister's forehead. It'll stay in the family. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. Caroline passed away peacefully that night. Heather posted about it before we had even notified the rest of the family. Her post was filled with hearts, angel emojis, and hashtags about legacy and grief. It made me sick. The funeral was a blur of black dresses, silk scarves, and hushed conversations. Heather showed up in a designer outfit I had never seen before, sunglasses too large for her face, and a diamond bracelet she clearly hadn't bought herself. She acted like a celebrity widow rather than a mourning niece. She gave a speech, short, dramatic, and completely rehearsed. Aunt Caroline saw something special in me, she said to the crowd. She believed in me when no one else did. She always told me I was destined for more. I glanced at Robert. His jaw was tight. Neither of us had ever heard Caroline say anything like that. After the funeral, Heather refused to ride back with us. I'll meet you at home, she said, brushing past us. That night, she came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes. She didn't sit. She didn't offer to help. She just leaned against the counter with a smirk on her face and said the words that would burn themselves into my memory forever. You two need to move out. I stopped scrubbing. I thought I misheard. What? You heard me. You have 3 days to leave. This house is mine. I don't need you anymore. She said it like she was talking to tenants she'd never met. Not her parents. Not the people who raised her, who gave up their home, their savings, their comfort. Heather, I said, my voice cracking, we've been paying the mortgage. You haven't worked in years. This is our home, too. She rolled her eyes. Yeah, well, that was then. Things have changed. I don't want to live with old people. I'm going to have guests, a new lifestyle. I can't have you two hovering around. It's embarrassing. Robert stood behind me, silent, like someone had knocked the air out of him. I swallowed hard. And where do you expect us to go? She shrugged. I don't know. You're smart. You'll figure it out. Just don't make it dramatic. I don't have time for guilt trips. She walked out before I could say another word. I stared at the soap bubbles sliding down the plates and realized my hands were shaking. My chest felt heavy, like something sacred had been broken inside me. Robert placed his hand on my shoulder, gently, and I could feel his heart break in the silence. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed in our little guest room, surrounded by the photos we brought with us, and I let myself cry. Not loud, not messy, just quiet tears that soaked the pillow. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the years of love, of giving, of bending over backwards that suddenly meant nothing. 3 days. After everything. 3 days. She didn't even ask if we had somewhere to go. She didn't even pretend to be grateful. She saw us as nothing more than a burden she could now afford to toss aside. Her transformation into this cold, entitled woman didn't happen overnight, but it felt like it had crashed down on us all at once. I couldn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, reliving every moment, every sacrifice. I remembered holding Heather as a newborn, swaddling her during thunderstorms, cheering her on during school plays, comforting her through heartbreaks. I remembered late-night grocery runs when she had cravings, driving her to and from college when she was too anxious to be alone, covering her rent when she lost her first job. She had always taken more than she gave, but we had always offered with open hands, because that's what parents do. That's what we believed. But now, with just one sentence, she had thrown it all away. 3 days. That was all she gave us. I closed my eyes and tried to remember Caroline's voice. I thought about the way she looked at me in that hospital bed, how she gripped my hand one last time. There was something unspoken in her expression, something I didn't understand then, but I would soon. For now, all I knew was this: we had to pack up our lives again. Only this time, not for love, for survival. And somewhere deep inside me, something started to shift. A quiet resolve. A voice I hadn't heard in years. The voice of someone who remembered her worth. I wouldn't let this be the end. Not like this. I didn't sleep much the night after Heather told us to leave. Even with the door closed, I could still hear her moving around the house, her heels clicking across the hardwood floors, the sound of the refrigerator opening and slamming shut, her voice as she laughed on the phone. Probably talking to one of her friends, maybe even bragging about what she'd just done. About how she was finally free from her parents. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my hands clasped over my stomach like I was trying to hold myself together. My heart wasn't just heavy. It hurt. Physically hurt. I kept going over her words again and again. The way she had leaned against the counter like she owned the world, like the house wasn't ours too. The way she said, "You have 3 days to move out," like we were strangers renting a room. 3 days. That was all the time she gave us. No warning, no discussion, no care. That morning, I sat in the kitchen alone. Heather had gone out. She didn't leave a note. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't ask if we had breakfast. There was a half-eaten croissant on the counter, a lipstick-stained coffee cup in the sink. The house smelled like her new expensive perfume, something sharp and cold that made me feel like a guest in my own life. Robert sat across from me, silent. He was never much of a talker in the mornings, but today his silence had weight. His hands were wrapped around his coffee mug, but I don't think he even took a sip. We just sat there, breathing in the quiet. I tried to make sense of it, of all the years, the memories, the sacrifices, and how they suddenly didn't matter. When Heather was little, she used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms. She'd clutch her stuffed rabbit and whisper, "Don't leave me." And I'd wrap my arms around her and promise, every time, we never will. We kept that promise. Through scraped knees, through mean girls at school, through her college anxiety. When she called us crying because she failed her first exam, I drove 6 hours just to be there. When she couldn't pay rent after college, we covered it. When she broke up with her first serious boyfriend, I took 2 weeks off work just to stay by her side. Every time she fell, we caught her. Every time she was lost, we helped her find her way. And now? Now she couldn't even look us in the eye as she threw us out. We sat in the living room later that afternoon, the same one I had decorated for the holidays last year. I had put up garlands, candles, a fake snow village on the mantel. Heather had rolled her eyes and said, "That stuff is tacky," but I didn't care. I wanted the house to feel like home. Now the same room felt cold, empty. I noticed that she had taken down the family photos. Ours. Replaced them with modern art and prints she bought online. Photos of her with friends we had never met. None of us. That night, we started to pack. Robert went to the garage to get the boxes. I opened the closet in the guest room and stared at the clothes hanging neatly, the ones I hadn't worn in months. I touched my winter coat, the one I'd bought before we moved here, thinking we'd spend holidays together, the three of us, warm and safe. Every item I packed felt like a goodbye, not just to the house, but to the illusion. She never came to check on us, never asked how we were doing. Instead, I heard her on the phone again, laughing, loud, carefree. She was celebrating our departure. She even had the nerve to bring home shopping bags the next day. She strutted through the hallway, high heels clicking again, arms full of boxes. New shoes, new clothes, probably expensive. I watched from the stairs, quiet. She glanced up, saw me, and smiled like she had already won. "You guys almost done?" she asked casually, like we were movers. I didn't answer. She tilted her head. "Just make sure you leave the keys. Oh, and don't take the spare blender." That was a gift. That blender had been mine, years before. I had brought it with us. She had used it every day, and now she was claiming it as hers. I felt a hot wave rise up my neck, but I still didn't say a word. What would I even say that she would care to hear? The next morning, she came into the guest room without knocking. Robert was folding a blanket. "By the way," she said, tossing her hair over her shoulder, "someone is coming to see the house this weekend. I'm thinking of putting it up for sale. I want a bigger house, maybe with a pool." I stared at her. "It's not really your style anyway," she added with a smirk. Robert looked down. He didn't say anything. I could see it in his face. He wanted to cry, but he wouldn't let himself. Not in front of her. "It was never about style," I said softly. "It was about you." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Well, it's about me now." Then she walked out. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about all the small things. All the ways she had shown us we didn't matter. The way she ignored us when her friends came over. The way she never invited us to eat with her. The way she rolled her eyes every time I asked how she was doing. The way she looked at me like I was just in her way. The way she took and took and took and never once said thank you. And we let her. We let her do it. Because we loved her. I remember one afternoon a few months ago. I had baked her favorite muffins. Blueberry lemon. I left them on the counter with a note, just because. "Love, Mom." She never said a word. Just tossed the note in the trash. I found it there, later that night. I remember when her car broke down. She didn't ask for help. Just left the repair bill on the kitchen table with a sticky note. "Can you cover this?" No, please. No explanation. We paid it anyway. I remember when I tried to talk to her about applying for a job again. Gently, carefully. I said maybe it would help her feel more independent. She slammed her coffee cup on the table. "You think I don't already feel like a failure?" I said I didn't mean it like that, but she didn't want to hear it. She stormed out and didn't come home until midnight. Then she didn't speak to us for 2 days. And we still apologized. We always apologized. I looked at Robert. He was sitting in his recliner, the same one he used to nap in after work. He looked smaller somehow, like everything we had built was slipping through his fingers. "She doesn't love us," I whispered. He didn't look up. Just said, "I know." And that was the hardest part. Not the packing, not the leaving, but realizing we had been used by the person we had loved most. Heather didn't come home the night before we left. Or maybe she did and just didn't bother to say anything. We spent our last morning in silence, loading our things into the car. A few boxes, a few bags. I took one last look at the house. The one we bought for her. The one we paid for. And I felt nothing. No sadness. No nostalgia. Just emptiness. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't come outside. She didn't ask where we were going. And that was the moment I finally stopped wondering if she ever would. I closed the car door, buckled my seatbelt, and looked ahead. We were driving away from the house we built. But more than that, we were leaving behind the illusion of a daughter who cared. And somewhere deep inside me, a space that had been filled with hope for too long finally emptied. I was done. Not angry. Not broken. Just done. And that kind of ending doesn't scream. It doesn't shatter windows. It just shuts the door. And never looks back. We moved into a small rented apartment the same evening we left Heather's house. It wasn't much, a one-bedroom with faded walls, worn carpet, and a faint smell of old paint. But it was quiet, peaceful. Ours. We didn't talk much that night. There was nothing left to say. Robert made us both a cup of tea while I unpacked the suitcase with our clothes. I opened a drawer and gently laid in the folded shirts, smoothing them with my hand even though they didn't need it. My fingers were moving, but my mind wasn't there. It was still in that house. Still echoing with Heather's voice, "I don't need you anymore." The next morning, I was still making the bed when the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I picked up. "Mrs. Martin?" The voice was calm, professional. "This is Gregory Dunn. I'm your sister Caroline's attorney. I'm calling regarding the reading of her will. We'd like you and your husband to come in today. There are matters that need your attention." I felt my breath catch in my throat. I thought Heather would be handling that. She said, "Ma'am," he interrupted, gently but firmly. "Have you read the will?" I blinked. "No." "Then I strongly advise you to come." An hour later, we were sitting in a sleek downtown office. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Clean lines. Cold air. I kept my hands clasped in my lap as Mr. Dunn flipped through paperwork with his smooth precision. Heather was already there, sitting back in the leather chair like she owned the place. Legs crossed. Sunglasses on her head, like she had just come from brunch. She glanced at me and Robert with barely a nod. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. Her tone was too casual, too smug. "We were invited," I said, keeping my voice calm. She shrugged. "Doesn't matter. It's just a formality, right? I mean, we all know what Caroline wanted." She was smiling, a small, satisfied smile. She leaned toward Mr. Dunn. "Shall we begin?" He looked between us, then opened a file. "This is the last will and testament of Caroline Pierce, dated and notarized 6 weeks before her passing." Heather tilted her head, trying to look dignified, but I could see the glint in her eyes. She thought she already knew everything. Mr. Dunn began to read. "To my sister Lorraine Martin, I leave the remainder of my estate, including but not limited to all financial holdings, stocks, properties, liquid assets, and the entirety of my business interests. Total value at the time of this will, $19,832,000. I blinked. Heather's smile faltered. Heather stood up. "No, that can't be right. Read it again." Mr. Dunn did not look up. "I have verified this will with the court. It is valid and legally binding." "But she told me," she said. Heather's voice cracked. "She told me everything would go to me." Mr. Dunn looked at her for the first time. "I can only speak to what is written and legally recognized." Heather turned to me, her eyes wild. "What did you do? What did you say to her?" I shook my head stunned. "Nothing." I said nothing, and it was true. I hadn't asked Caroline for anything. In fact, I thought she resented how close Heather tried to get to her in those last days. I remembered the look she gave me in the hospital, how she held my hand, how she chose silence over spectacle. Heather's breathing was sharp. She looked at Mr. Dunn like he might change the words with a glance. There must be another version, a newer draft. This was the last and only legally confirmed version. Silence. Deep. Heavy. And then Heather laughed. A short, bitter sound. "Wow. So that's how it is." She turned to me. "I take you in. I let you stay in my house. And this is how you repay me." Robert shifted beside me, but I placed a hand on his. I met Heather's eyes. "You didn't take us in. We gave you that house. We paid for everything." Her lip curled. "Sure. Now you want to pretend you were the victim." "No. I just want you to stop pretending you were the one who gave anything." Her face twisted. "You wouldn't have had anything if it weren't for me. Aunt Caroline liked me. She trusted me." I stood slowly. "Then why didn't she leave it to you?" She had no answer. Mr. Dunn began outlining the next steps, but I barely heard him. My heart was pounding, not with triumph, not with joy, with something else, something harder to name. The room felt smaller. Heather smaller. After the meeting, Heather followed us outside. "You don't deserve it," she hissed. "But we do," I replied. She looked like she wanted to scream, but instead she whispered, "You'll be sorry." Robert turned to her. "No, we were sorry. For years. Not anymore." We walked away. I felt her eyes on my back, burning. That night, sitting in our tiny apartment, I stared at the beige wall for a long time. I should have felt victorious, but I didn't. Because in that moment, I thought about the time she came home from school crying in 2nd grade. The teacher had embarrassed her, and she said she didn't want to go back. I let her stay home the next day. We made pancakes. We watched cartoons. She smiled. I remembered that smile. And now I saw it warped. Somewhere along the way, we lost her. Or maybe she was never who we thought she was. I didn't cry, but I grieved. 3 days later, she called. I didn't answer. Then she texted. First, I was upset. I didn't mean everything I said. Then, "Can we meet?" "I want to explain." Then, "I need help. Please." I showed Robert the messages. He stared at them for a while. Then I replied, "We would like the full amount we invested in the house returned to us. Our lawyer will contact you regarding the paperwork. From this point forward, you will be responsible for your own living expenses. We wish you well." She didn't respond right away. Then, "So you're just cutting me off?" I didn't reply. She called again that night. I answered. "Hello, you're really doing this?" "Yes. What am I supposed to do?" "Live. Work. Like we did. You raised me to believe family helps each other. And you taught me that love without respect is not love at all." There was a long silence. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said quietly. "But you did. So that's it? You're erasing me." I took a breath. "No, but you won't be in our will." Her breath caught. "What?" "We gave you everything. And when you didn't need us, you told us to leave. I was emotional, so were we. But we didn't throw you away." She didn't say anything after that. We ended the call. I sat there in the quiet for a while. Robert reached for my hand. "You okay?" I nodded. "I think I am." The snow began to fall outside. Soft. Clean. I stood by the window and watched as it covered everything. Not to erase, but to begin again. The first message came the next morning. "Mom, can we please talk? Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I read it, then locked my phone screen. I didn't answer. By the time I sat down for breakfast with Robert, 3 more messages had come through. One of them was a voice message. I didn't open it. I didn't want to hear her voice. Not yet. I looked across the table at my husband. He had just made scrambled eggs and toast, like he always did. It was a quiet morning, the kind I used to wish for. "She's trying to get to you," he said calmly, passing me the butter. "Don't let her." "I know," I replied. I spread the butter slowly, evenly, like I had all the time in the world. I had once rushed to answer her every message. Now I took my time with everything. Around lunch, another message came. "Mom, this has gone too far. I'm sorry for what I said. I was stressed. I didn't mean to sound so cold." I didn't respond. That same afternoon, I got a phone call. When I saw her name on the screen, I let it ring. Then she tried Robert. He let it ring too. The next day, the tone shifted. "I can't believe you're doing this. You always said family was the most important thing. And now you're just cutting me off?" Still, we said nothing. By the 3rd day, the messages were frantic. "I can't pay the mortgage. I don't know what to do. They say the utilities will be shut off if I don't pay by Friday." She included a photo of a final notice. "Electricity. Past due." I stared at it for a moment, then placed the phone down. That same bill used to come to my email. I had autopay set up for it. She had never even seen it until now. I remembered the years I quietly handled it all. The electric, the water, the gas, the repairs. I used to keep a notebook where I tracked all her expenses. She never asked how things got fixed. She never said thank you. I remembered the day the hot water heater broke and I stayed up all night online comparing service companies. I called 3 different ones the next morning. I stayed home from a dentist appointment so they could come. She was out shopping when they arrived. She had come home later with a new pair of shoes and said, "Oh, the water works now? Good." No thank you. Not even a glance. That memory was all I needed. I didn't respond. On the fourth day, she came to our apartment. I heard her car before I saw her. It pulled up fast, too fast for the narrow lot. I was sitting by the window with a cup of tea. "She's here," I said quietly. Robert looked up from the newspaper. "Let her knock." A few seconds later, there it was. 3 sharp knocks. Then a pause. Then again, more insistent. "Mom, I know you're in there. Please, can we talk?" I didn't move. "I know you're upset. I was wrong, okay? I was wrong. Please, I can't do this alone." Still, I sat. She knocked again. "You're really not going to open the door?" After everything. Robert stood and walked over to the door, not to open it, but to speak clearly from behind it. "Heather, this is not the time. Please leave." She didn't knock again. She just stood there quiet. Then, slowly, we heard the car pull away. That night, another message came. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just didn't know how to ask for help without sounding weak. I messed everything up." I turned off the phone and went to bed. The following week, a letter came from our lawyer. The process to reclaim the investment in the house was moving forward. Heather hadn't replied to the notice yet. There would be more paperwork soon. Probably resistance. Maybe even a legal fight. But we were ready. For once, I felt calm. That weekend, we went to the park. We hadn't done that in years. We sat on a bench under a tree and watched the leaves fall. It was quiet. The kind of quiet we never had before. Robert turned to me. "Do you regret it?" I knew what he meant. Cutting her off. Saying no. "No," I said. "I regret waiting so long." Because the truth was, I had seen the signs for years. I remembered the Thanksgiving she refused to come to because we didn't make the stuffing the way she liked. The birthdays she forgot. The time she yelled at me for calling her at work, even though it was to tell her her cousin had passed away. I remembered all of it. The way she never apologized unless she needed something. The way she said things that cut deep, then acted like nothing happened. I remembered when she called me controlling because I offered to help her budget. I remembered when she said I was too traditional because I still ironed shirts and cooked every night. I remembered when she looked at me like I was small, like I was old, like I didn't understand her world. But I did. I just never told her. Because for years, I had kept the peace. I had swallowed the hurt. Now, I was finally free. Another message arrived the next day. They turned off the gas. "I don't know what to do. I can't afford to move. Please, can you just loan me something? Just for this month. Just until I get a job." But I knew Heather. She had said that before. Every time, it was temporary. Every time, we covered the gap. Every time, she promised to fix things. And every time, she didn't. So I deleted the message. Then, 2 days later, the message that changed everything. "I told people you kicked me out. Everyone thinks you abandoned me. I don't care anymore. You don't deserve what you got." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't show Robert. I didn't cry. I felt a wave of something colder. That was her final card. Her final excuse. To lie. To spin the truth. I opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. It was thick. Every receipt, every bank transfer, every utility bill, every payment we made for her. All of it. I filed it away months ago. Not for revenge. Not to attack. But because I knew this day would come. She wanted the world to believe we were cruel. So we would show them the truth if we needed to. But we wouldn't yell. We wouldn't shame. We would just protect ourselves. Quietly. Legally. Completely. And one day, she would be left with the silence. Not because we stopped loving her, but because she made it impossible to stay. Robert and I spent that afternoon writing letters. One to our attorney. One to our financial advisor. One to the charity we wanted to support. It was the first time in years that we sat at the table planning our future without guilt, without obligation, without her. And when we finished, we had tea. The world outside kept moving. The wind rustled the trees. A child laughed somewhere on the street. Life went on. And for the first time in a long time, we were part of it. No longer caretakers of someone else's comfort. Just two people finally living. A week after the last message, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in that familiar, rushed handwriting. I sat down at the kitchen table, turned it over, and opened it. Inside was a letter. 3 pages. Handwritten. It was from Heather. She didn't start with "Dear Mom." Just, "I don't know what else to do. I feel like I'm drowning. Everything is falling apart." The bank froze one of my accounts because I missed too many payments. I had to sell some of my jewelry to cover the credit card. "I feel like I'm slipping through the cracks and you won't even look at me." I read every word. Not because I believed her, but because I needed to hear the voice she was using now. She called us cold. She said we had given up on her. She said we were making her pay for one mistake. One mistake? I thought of all the moments she treated our care like an inconvenience. The times she dismissed our help, but still expected it. The day she stood in that kitchen and said, "I don't need you anymore." This letter was filled with desperation, but not once did she mention the mortgage we paid, the bills we covered, the holidays we spent alone when she said she was too busy to visit. She didn't ask how we were. She didn't say she missed us. It was only about what she needed now. I folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. Robert came in with coffee and sat beside me. "Another plea?" he asked. I nodded. Same tune, different words. He didn't ask if I planned to write back. He knew. Later that day, something unexpected happened. An email came from someone I didn't recognize. The subject line, "Thank you." I opened it. It was from a woman named Ellen. She said she had worked with Caroline for over a decade. Said she had heard about what happened, and she wanted to say something. She wrote, "Your sister always spoke highly of you. She said you were the one person who never asked her for anything. She told me once that she was proud of how you lived, that you had dignity, that you gave without ever expecting something in return. I hope you know she saw you, truly saw you." I stared at the screen. That was the first time in a long time I felt truly understood, not by my daughter, but by someone who had quietly watched and remembered. We took that as a sign. That same week, Robert and I booked our first real trip, a 2-week stay along the coast. Ocean views, quiet mornings, long walks. We used to talk about this, back when we were young. When Heather was in school and money was always tight. Back then, we told ourselves, maybe one day. Now, we finally had a reason to go, and nothing to hold us back. I packed light, a suitcase and a journal. Before we left, I wrote one final letter to Heather. Short, honest, not cruel. We will always care for you, but love must be mutual to be healthy. Until you understand that, we need space. Please don't contact us unless it's to truly rebuild what was broken with honesty, not guilt. We wish you peace. No threats. No conditions. Just truth. We left it at that. The trip was quiet, beautiful, healing. We walked every morning. We ate fresh seafood by the water. We laughed. We sat in silence, holding hands, not needing to say anything at all. We didn't talk about Heather. Not often. And when we did, it wasn't with pain. It was with acceptance. On our last evening there, I stood on the balcony and watched the sun go down over the waves. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt peace. I realized something in that moment. You don't have to earn love by sacrificing everything. And rejection, as painful as it is, can be a kind of love too. Love for yourself. Because choosing peace is not the same as giving up. It's standing up. And finally, at this stage in life, I understood. Age is not about weakness. It's about dignity. If you've ever felt like you don't belong, you're not alone. I won't be afraid to tell the truth anymore, even if it hurts. Thank you for listening to my story.